get up, let me begin. This is TWSN. You ain't heard about us yet, well you better know now, because it's the place that it all goes down. Get up, let me begin. This is TWSN. You ain't heard about us yet, well you better know now, because it's the place that it all goes down.
Shout out Young Swish.
Tuning into another episode of the Sit Down Morning Show with Malik Wright, presented by the Right Way Sports Network. I'm your host, Malik Wright, joined by my co-host, as always, 𝗦𝗢𝗢𝗔𝗦𝗢𝗥. We've got our fantasy guy in the building, Mike O'Hara. You know it's not a Friday here at TWSN if it's not Fantasy Football Friday, so you know we'll be discussing all things. We appreciate y'all for tuning in. While we have you here, while we jump at everything, make sure you do us a favor, give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, turn on post notifications so you guys don't miss when we go live or upload content from the TWSN studios. Boys, I want to start us off in Buffalo. All right. Last night, Buffalo Bills beat the Miami Dolphins. No shock there. I don't think anybody's shocked by that. But it left me, I don't know, wondering, is Joe Brady going to be the next hot candidate to be a head coach? I want to get you guys' opinion on this. Mike, let's start with you.
They talked about it on the broadcast, and I do really think that this is something that that's been, I think, understood since last year, honestly. Yeah. Like they talk about quarterbacks being talent elevators, but I think the same goes for offensive coordinators. I mean, they've got a good group there in Buffalo. I mean, James Cook has just been taking it to teams all year long. But when you look at the pass catchers in particular, I mean, it's a solid group of guys, a lot of guys who can fill their roles. But what Joe Brady is getting out of these guys, I think it's really, really just obviously it's Josh Allen, but it's a symptom of Joe Brady's system, his ability to get the most out of his players, to highlight their strengths. I mean, you see what Khalil Shakir is doing in the screen game, just kind of getting him the ball by the sticks or near the sticks, using Keon Coleman as that big physical presence on the field. You saw that quick slant near the end zone where he had leverage and just out physicals and outside out just is bigger than the cornerback. And he's just getting his players in a position to succeed. And that starts with Joe Brady, trickles down to Josh Allen. And yeah, as long as this offense keeps humming, he's gotten interviews in the past and he's undoubtedly going to get them in the future. I mean, we saw it last offseason, Josh Allen jokingly saying, like, this guy sucks, don't hire him. Yeah. I mean, it really seemed like he was going to get one of those jobs last offseason. And as long as they don't just completely crumble, which with Josh Allen and just guys staying healthy seems pretty much inevitable. Yeah, this is going to be a guy who's going to be at the top of head coaching head coaching interviews.
Yeah, for me, when I look at it, like I think that he's definitely going to be in the conversation. I think he deserves it, at least to be, like I said, mentioned. And I feel like it depends on how many openings there are. But if there's 3, 4, 5 openings, I'm confident he's going to get a job. But for me, honestly, I don't know if I'm putting him above a lot of these other guys. I think he's probably maybe 3rd or 4th on my ranking, you know, when it comes to the next head coaches available. And I think one of the things, maybe this is just my philosophy right now, but I think that a lot of these teams don't necessarily, you know, don't need a first-year head coach. And maybe that's just the way I'm looking at this upcoming cycle of teams like the Miami Dolphins, or teams, you know, like the Tennessee Titans, or teams like the New York Giants. For me, the way I'm looking at it is like, I just don't know if Joe Brady is the best possible fit for those teams. And like I said, I think he deserves the consideration, because it's not like he's coming to Buffalo and this is the first place he succeeded. He actually had success in Carolina before, and it just wasn't the best situation for him. So I like what he's brought to this offense, and the fact that where their offense was before to where it is now, I think he's definitely improved it. But for me, guys like Mike McCarthy, I'm ranking higher than him. Guys, hell, even like a Brian Flores, I'm ranking higher than him, just because if I put myself in the shoes of, let's say, New York Giants, obviously there's the connection of they brought in a Buffalo guy before. I don't think that they would do that. But in a nutshell, I also don't think that Brady would be the best possible fit there. So maybe that's me being a little harsh on him. But like I said, I still think that he's got more to prove this season. And he is not, in my opinion, of the tier that Ben Johnson was last year. Hey, that is the hottest guy on the block, because I think he's actually closer to a Cliff Kingsbury, in my opinion, than a Mike McCarthy in this upcoming head coaching cycle.
I'm going to gaslight you a little bit here, Daniel.
Yeah.
You don't think Joe Brady is a certain fit for those teams? What team do you think he's a fit for? Just curious.
To be honest, I was looking. I don't know. I don't know, and I'd have to see. Go back in detail and see. But maybe the one team, like, it would make perfect sense. Like the Carolina Panthers would be interesting, but he was already there. So for me, when I look at these openings, Miami, I just don't know if that's. How do you move off Mike McDaniel and go to Joe Brady? I think they need a veteran guy. I think that they need an experienced guy. I think that they need a culture guy, a guy that isn't a first-year guy. The New York Giants, same thing. I think that it's a little weird if they were to go back-to-back Buffalo guys, and Carolina as well. He was in Carolina before. Tennessee, I don't know if they're moving off of Brian Callahan after 2 years to go right back to a first-year guy. It would have to be another team, to be honest with you. So looking at those teams, yeah.
What team?
I don't know. And that's why when I'm looking at the rest of these teams, the only other team would be the Cincinnati Bengals.
Huh?
If they move on with Zach Taylor. That would be
No, what? What? Where'd you get that from? Oh man, Joe Brady. Yeah, I think the word of Joe Brady. That guy was scapegoated in Carolina. Played under a terrible coach in the NFL, and Matt Rule. Matt Rule is a good college football coach. Scapegoated him, which was interesting because Teddy Bridgewater had a very good season under Joe Brady. I think they almost had 3,000-yard receivers that year. It was just interesting how they just kind of scapegoated him the following year because things just kind of fell off just simply fell by the wayside. I think that Matt Rule had a hard time realizing that. Coaching college is one thing, but coaching these NFL players with so many egos and money involved, it's a little bit difficult. And I think there's a more leadership involved in that. I know Matt Rule personally, but at the end of the day, I think it's one of those things where, I felt like Joe Brady was always going to be able to rebound. All he needed was a team to take a chance on him. It seemed like it fit like a glove. It was like, hey, you were Burrow's passing game coordinator. I know people think he was the offensive coordinator at LSU. He wasn't. He was the passing game coordinator. Steve Esminger was the offensive coordinator at LSU that year. But Joe Brady had a huge hand, and that's the reason why Joe Brady got a lot of looks from the NFL. Mm-hmm. He did great with Carolina Panthers before he got scapegoated the next season. Then the Buffalo Bills hire him after he's working under Ken Dorsey. Ken Dorsey. And then I knew that this would be a good fit for Josh Allen offense. And I don't know if you guys just turn on the film and you watch it. It just seems easy for them. Yeah. It seems easy. Offense seems easy for them. They find a way to get their guys involved. And I really think Josh Allen right now is suffering from the lack of weapons at the wide receiver position right now. Obviously, Keon Coleman is a guy that they spent a second-round pick on, but I think you're still waiting for that potential to finally show its face. But what I saw last night, I saw his receivers having a hard time breaking open. So what did they do? Okay, Josh Allen did the next best thing, something that he used to not do early in his career. He was finding his outlets. He was, throwing it to his tight ends, throwing it to his running backs. He was making the smart reads out there versus making the more dangerous reads. So I think the world of a guy like Joe Brady. I think Joe Brady is maturing right before our very own eyes. I think whatever team gets him is going to be very, very lucky. Again, we're talking about an offensive play caller. How is he as a leader? Mm-hmm. Those are the things that you have to, because you have to realize when you're the head coach of the team, you're more so taking on a leadership role. There's so much more that goes into what you're expected to do. But I think the word of Joe Brady, I'm very curious to see where he lands. I know that there's a couple of teams out there that are probably kicking themselves. The Carolina Panthers are probably like, God damn. Yeah. That guy would be a guy we probably would have loved to have. Because you imagine Joe Brady working with Bryce Young or working with whoever quarterback. What would that look like, right? I'm sure the Miami Dolphins are probably kicking themselves, moving on from Brian Flores prematurely because their owner, Stephen Ross, didn't like him. I just think that when you look at a lot of some of the moves, I think sometimes teams move off of coaches way too soon, mm-hmm. whether that be coordinators, whether that be head coaches. But if you're on the job for 6 years and, you don't have too much to show for it, I can understand a team moving off of you. I don't think that's a bad take. I don't think that's a wrong read, but I think Joe Brady's going to make some ownership group look very, very smart and very intelligent for hiring him, because I think he's a perfect blend of the college game. He's not too far removed from the college game, and he obviously has proven he can do it at the National Football League. Anything else you want to add, Daniel?
Yeah, like I said, I think that I like him. I think for me, I'm just looking at these other candidates, and this is maybe just where I'm at with the cycle in a whole of, hey, like I look at what's happening in the NFL, and I'm going to project a little bit here, but I look at this past cycle. I look at what Vrabel is doing in New England. I think that's a 10-win football team. And I think a lot of that has to do with the caliber of coach that he is and the culture that he's instilled, as well as I look at the Raiders. And once again, I am projecting they are 1-1 and they haven't looked great in their second game. But I think that the fact that he is a former coach, the fact that their entire program turned around from where it was, the Raiders were a shit show with their previous head coaches. And I'm buying into the experience. So for me, like you said, I think it has to be the perfect situation. I don't think Miami is the good fit. I don't think
Miami,
that
dude.
Carolina, I don't think that New York, it's going to have to be a different team. And that's where I just look at him as a candidate and say, hey, if those guys aren't running to the podium for him, that's why I'm pulling back just a little bit on Joe Brady. But it's not to say he will never be a good head coach. I think he will be.
I'll tell you one thing. The Miami Dolphins, I don't think any legitimate candidate is going to take a head coaching job there. They need a fall guy for 2026 if and when it seems inevitably that Mike McDaniel gets canned. I mean, they're stuck with Tua until 2027 on that contract. Tyreek Hill's contract into next year is horrendous in terms of the cap hit, and you can restructure it to clear some things up. But I mean, the whole situation in Miami, just in terms of the roster construction, is pretty brutal. And I would be hard pressed to imagine that Joe Brady is going to subject himself to that in his first year. So I don't know. It just with how things are set up and what the future looks like for the Miami Dolphins, I have a tough time imagining any legitimate head coaching candidate who looks like they have a promising future in this league is going to be willing to just walk into that disaster.
Yeah, man, they've got a lot of problems, but it's weird. Like I look at them and I see how Miami. It was weird. They were tough yesterday. They were a tough out, and it was weird because it was like the game was potentially in their hands. Like we were talking about this. The Bills were not looking good on offense.
Not in the second half.
2 3 and outs, and then another time where it was looking like a struggle, but it comes back to the end of the game and Tua throws the pick and whatever way people want to dice it up. The roughing the kicker. And that's where you have to blame the coaching because of that roughing the kicker, because of their lack of quote unquote, just wherewithal, because there was another flag in the red zone where it was 1st and goal, but still picked up Josh Allen, kind of threw him.
So bad.
That falls back on coaching, and that just falls back on culture as a whole. And I think Miami's they're really struggling right now. So I don't necessarily know who's going to take that job, but I'd be curious to see when, because it sucks. At 0-3, your chances of making the playoffs, you have a 2% chance of making the playoffs. And that's the part that sucks for Miami.
So I have a bright idea of what the Miami Dolphins should do. Bright idea. Just came to me while you guys were talking about how nobody's going to take that job and yada yada. Maybe they should go out there and they should offer their former defensive coordinator the head coaching job to do it again in the NFL. Who wouldn't want to come to Miami, retire in Miami, fix the biggest issue that they have right now, which is defense? Bring back Vic Fangio. Listen, you're getting an older person, right? You're getting an older dude who's going to be able to, I guess, restore order, bring some seriousness about to that team because they certainly need it. And honestly, what they're going to be going through is a little bit of a rebuild. Understanding Vic Fangio, if he takes that job, probably not going to be you're probably not going to be able to see the fruits of your labor, just be honest with you, because that's typically how the NFL works. If you don't want to do Vic Fangio, hey, maybe you could pull out Mike Zimmer from retirement and say, Mike, I know Mike was a good head coach with the Vikings. They just couldn't get over the hump. He was good. He was a good coach for the Minnesota Vikings. It took him forever to finally get a shot. But why not hire a coach that probably still has a love for the game, but he's going to be willing to rebuild. You're going to be able to rebuild with him. That's just my thoughts. But yeah, what?
Yeah, I like it. I like it. The thing with Vic Fangio is weird. I'm with you. I just hope that he doesn't retire, because he was talking about just staying in Philly and leaving.
Philly's a cushy job,
man. Yeah, until you get offered millions and millions and millions.
I agree.
To Miami,
to go to Miami,
you sell it to your family. Come on, Vic. You're an old guy now. Come on. Let's come to Miami. Let's do things right. Retire on a high note. You already won a championship with Philly.
I know.
I mean,
his bank account.
I know in terms of his bank account.
I'm talking about lifestyle. I'm not talking about. Hey, listen, lifestyle. You know, you want to live a nice lifestyle. Who wants to
You
deal
gotta
with
find the
Philly?
balance between legacy and money.
You know, exactly. I think Vic Fangio's earned his keep at this point. But
100%.
listen,
100%.
I want to keep the conversation rolling. Before we keep going, do us a huge favor. Give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, turn on post notifications so you guys don't miss when we go live, when we upload content from TWSN Studios. Listen, I want to talk about Jake Browning. I want to talk about Jake Browning and will he lead the Cincinnati Bengals to a 3-0 start? There are a lot of mixed opinions out there about Jake Browning. I think he's one of the better backup quarterbacks in the league, more so in the system, personally. I think that he's had a lot of reps in the system. So I think that because he's had to deal with, this unfortunate situation before, it shouldn't be too much or too tall of a task. All we're asking to do is go out there, be a game manager, not turn the ball over, don't put the ball in harm's way, and just execute the game plan, whatever that might be, because you never know with Zac Taylor. But I want to get you guys' opinion on that. What do you guys think about Jake Browning leading the Bengals to a 3-0 start? They take on the Minnesota Vikings this upcoming week. Minnesota Vikings are not playing J.J. McCarthy, and I rate J.J. McCarthy really high. I think J.J. McCarthy is going to be a good final quarterback in the future. But they take on Carson Wentz, the former, did he win MVP?
MVP.
He should have won if he didn't blow out his knee.
If he didn't blow out his knee, right?
Yep.
So they take on Carson Wentz. He's thrusted into action, gets a chance to prove himself. But then people are saying Jake Browning revenge game. What are you guys' thoughts on that, Mike? It's like there's something you wanted to say.
Yeah, I know I came on this show last Monday and was just a curmudgeon about the Bengals outlook, and
Yes,
I just got absolutely dogged. But
Deserved.
Yeah, sure. But I mean, it would be ridiculous of me to say that this game is not a winnable football game.
Yeah.
I mean, that's completely understood with the injuries piling up for both JJ McCarthy and the offensive line and Aaron Jones. I mean, it's a very winnable football game for the Cincinnati Bengals. And I think the other thing that people aren't talking about is that 2023 season when Jake Browning did come in and had some relative success. And like I said on Monday, I'm hesitant to lean into a 7-game sample size, especially with some of the games that he played. Just 2 of those wins did come against Gardner Minshew and Jeff Driscoll at quarterback for opposing teams. So I'm hesitant to fully lean into it. But I do think one aspect that some people aren't really discussing is the fact that that was his first year in the system. And he could have developed, especially within the system, just his own personal individual level of talent. So I think that there's plenty of reason to be optimistic about this individual game. I'm still on the pessimistic side when it comes to the rest of season outlook as a whole, without Joe Burrow for most of the way. But this is very much a winnable football game. And I just think it comes down to the chess match of Browning and Zac Taylor and all the weapons in Cincinnati versus Brian Flores and what he's got going on the defense. I mean, we talked about it when I was down here last Sunday before we watched the game. We talked about it for a half hour about what Brian Flores brings to the table and all the looks that he can generate defensively and just get into the quarterback's head, especially one who hasn't seen that much time on the actual football field during regular season. So it could very easily be a train wreck. But like you said, Malik, it's just really keep the ship on the right path. Don't crumble. Just keep things moving. Stick to the game plan. And I think Jake Browning's proven that he can do that. But it is undoubtedly a tough defensive coordinator and a tough defense to open up your season against.
Yeah, man. I think that Jake Browning, I'm excited to watch this game. I think whenever you have something that is not set in stone, whenever you have something that there's room for discussion, room for, questioning, I think it's always makes for excitement, right? Nobody knows what
100%.
You're getting out of Jake Browning. And I think that this is going to be a huge telltale for Zac Taylor and Dan Pitcher. And that's what I'm excited for. I think that the conversations we've had about Zac Taylor and this offense have been, hey, they're not putting Joe Burrow in the best possible position, this and that.
Yeah.
Well, they are forced to do that because you have had a week of, hey, Joe Burrow is not your quarterback. And as much as Zac Taylor is saying, hey, the offense isn't changing, they're very similar players, you are going to scheme stuff up for Jake Browning. That's what I don't know the exact quote, but he said, hey, our offense isn't going to change as much as because Jake Browning is a similar quarterback style to Joe Burrow. The question I have is going to be, how many mistakes does Jake Browning make? And that's the biggest question, because you look at what he's done. I mean, in his past 7 starts, he's thrown an interception in 6 of them. So he's going to give the defense opportunities. And when you have a caliber of a guy like Brian Flores on the other side, it's going to make for some hairy situations. But for me, I'm looking at the biggest focal point is going to be Chase Brown. I think Chase Brown has got to have a huge game because if we leave this week with Chase Brown at another 3.5, 3 yards per carry, I think we could be looking at the Bengals have had a loss. But I think if you can get the run game going, I'm actually fairly confident that this offense looks very, very solid. So I'm expecting a close game, and I'm expecting something to be, hey, into the fourth quarter. In my opinion, I think this game comes down to the defense, and it's going to come down to they've got to be able to make plays against Carson Wentz, and you have to capitalize on the fact that he is a first-time starter with the Minnesota Vikings this year.
Cooked. I think you just cooked.
I appreciate that.
And I think that was very well put by you. Moving it on over from Jake Browning and the Bengals to keeping it with the Bengals. We got a big time matchup. These two aren't actually going against each other, but their teams are. But it's going to be the debate. Who's the best wide receiver in the National Football League? Is it Justin Jefferson? Is it Ja'Marr Chase? Let me be very clear. I've been watching both of these guys since they were in college, long before Joe Burrow was a Bengal, long before Ja'Marr Chase was a Viking, and long before long before Justin Jefferson was a Viking, Ja'Marr Chase was a Bengal. Been watching them. I think it is very clear to me that Ja'Marr Chase is the better wide receiver out of the two. I think they are different types of wide receiver, but I think that everything that you want Justin to do, Ja'Marr can do. I think Ja'Marr is more explosive. I think Ja'Marr attacks the ball a little bit more aggressive. At his high point, I think that he can run every route in the route tree. I just think that Ja'Marr has the ability to take one play, take a 5-yard hitch route and take it all the way to the house. We've seen him do it time and time again. I don't feel the same with Justin Jefferson. I think Justin Jefferson is definitely dynamic. I definitely think he does have breakaway speed. But I just think that he's more of a volume guy. He kind of gets stronger. The more reps he gets, the better he kind of gets. But if he's not involved in the game early on, it feels like he's kind of easily to be phased out. But what are you guys' thoughts? You're the fantasy guy over there. I'm sure you probably have a take on this.
Yeah.
That's not bias.
I did. Obviously, I do my fantasy rankings, and then I did wide receiver, just general wide receiver rankings ahead of the season. And I did have Ja'Marr Chase at number 1.
Yeah.
What Justin Jefferson does so well is he's a force to be reckoned with and frightening at the top of routes. The way he can just snap down and just his change of direction ability is horrifying if you're an opposing defensive back. But in today's NFL, I think that Ja'Marr Chase's ability to get after it after the catch, and like you said, turn a screen, turn a hitch into an 80-yard gain. It's so incredibly valuable, especially with all these teams playing these soft zone coverages where guys are dropping back and they're forcing you to go underneath. I mean, having a guy who can turn a quick pass into a touchdown is just so incredibly valuable. The play that always comes, the two plays that come to mind are in week 17 of, I believe it was 2022, when he just took a drop step and blew by the Chiefs defenders. And then last year against the Carolina Panthers, he's just ping-ponging off defenders and he took it, 60 yards to the house. I mean, he's just such a dynamic player. And you hear about it, you see these clips from the NFL Top 100 about other NFL players talking about Ja'Marr Chase. They say once he gets the ball in his hands, he's like a running back with his ability to just get away from
his vision is very similar to a running back.
But just his ability to just leave you in the dust and just run away from you, whether that be with change of direction or just pure speed. It's very, very hard to find that in a receiver who can also do all of the actual wide receiver things. There's a lot of fast guys, a lot of guys who can generate after the catch, but he can do everything else as well. He can win in contested catch situations. He can burn you off the line of scrimmage. He can just simply out-route you and get open. So especially with all the yak stuff, I would rather have Ja'Marr Chase on my team.
Yeah, man. Listen, and I know
I can't wait to hear what you said, because for a long, long time, you could tell the people you were saying, hey, Justin Jefferson.
No, hold on. Yes, the conversation for me was, it wasn't a landslide that Ja'Marr Chase was better. That was the conversation for me. I always thought these guys were, neck and neck. I will admit, right now, Ja'Marr Chase is a better wide receiver. I would much rather have Ja'Marr Chase on my team. Better player. Yes, I was saying the position. He's a better player than Justin Jefferson. But for me, I don't think it's not like there's a crazy gap. I think there is a crazy gap in the one thing that it is probably the most important thing, and that is the yards after catch ability.
Well, I just think, let me think. I'm sorry to cut you off for a second. that pass that we just saw Justin Jefferson catch, right?
Yeah.
Or he catches the deep ball during the game, and he's trying to get the Vikings offense into a flow.
Yeah.
If that's Ja'Marr Chase catching that, he's taking that to the house.
Totally agree.
It was a completely wrong angle taken by Justin Jefferson. Those things should have happened a little bit often. Again, we're nitpicking here.
Yeah.
We're nitpicking.
100%.
But what I'm saying is what separates them is I want a receiver that has the ability to be exposed to take any play to the house at any point in time.
I agree.
That is not always the same. I do think Justin, where it gets interesting, who do you think is a better route runner?
I think Justin Jefferson's a better route runner. I think, but it's weird because it's like Justin's a better route runner, but I feel like, especially even along like the sideline, it's almost like I think Ja'Marr is very close to Jefferson in his spatial awareness to where, I mean, we've seen it multiple times. Hell, you look at the preseason, the amount of times that Ja'Marr is able to make those sideline grabs and it's second nature to him, I feel like that wasn't talked about enough early on in his career to where, hey, Justin was doing that. Justin was always, toe tapping, always doing, looking like the much crisper route runner. But at the end of the day, it's not how you look. It's how much separation you create. And I think that Justin Jefferson is probably a better route runner all around. But there are certain routes where you have to give Ja'Marr Chase his credit. And whether that's the quick game, he's got a much better feel for space when it comes to his routes in the short, quick game. So I don't know.
I think Ja'Marr is better. I think Ja'Marr is a better deep ball receiver than Justin Jefferson.
He's a better deep ball receiver, but when it like route running wise, like I think there's a lot that goes into it. Like route running.
I'm not putting you on the spot.
No. You're good. Like I don't think that there's like a large discrepancy between the two when it comes to like.
Really?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I mean, we've seen Justin Jefferson. I mean,
you know what makes me separate it? It's because Ja'Marr Chase is so lethal at the top of routes when a defender is holding on to him. He finds a way to make those contested catches, and you don't really get that often with Justin Jefferson.
I disagree with that.
It's almost honestly. Like his route running needs to break him open so he can kind of get those openings. But he's not catching. Let's be honest. When he's going dealing with a physical cornerback, and he's not winning 50-50 balls.
I disagree with that.
He's not.
I disagree with that.
Okay.
I disagree. I think we've seen a lot of times. Well, let me say this. Jammar's better. But I think Justin Jefferson can totally do that. Totally.
I haven't seen that, but
really, we've seen it. You've seen it.
Maybe you can pull up the film at some point.
There's the highlight reel grab he had on the
I'm not saying he's never done it.
Yeah.
But I'm saying Ja'Marr Chase has a highlight reel of doing stuff, catching things between the safety and the cornerback, winning 50-50 balls where he has to jump up. I mean, literally some ridiculous highlight reel type catches is what I'm trying to say. And again, we're nitpicking here. We're just talking about anything, but I think at the end of the day, I think to say that Justin can do the exact same stuff that Ja'Marr can do, I think that's not true.
I agree with that on the sense of, hey, I think that play you brought up was the perfect example of what can separate the two.
Yes.
As soon as that ball was in his hands, it's like, hey, Ja'Marr's taking that to the house. Yeah. I agree with it. And I think that, honestly, if we can leave the conversation, like we can continue, but that is what I would circle. And that's the play anytime somebody wants to bring up, hey, what separates them? You can literally point to that. And so many Bengals fans, people who watch football can say, hey, Ja'Marr probably takes that to the house and Jefferson didn't. So
I think the only thing that separates them is when Justin Jefferson gets more competent quarterback play, Justin Jefferson might have more have more receptions than him.
Yes.
Because he's a volume guy. He's a guy that he almost is like, obviously he's much better than Adam Thielen, but Adam Thielen gets stronger and stronger as the game goes on, the more he's involved. And I feel like that's the same with Justin Jefferson. I feel like if you can get Justin Jefferson out of the game, he tends to, if he's not involved in the game early and often, I feel like things can be out of whack. By the way, this dude at @𝗦𝗢𝗢𝗓 is going at your neck in the comment section. He's disagreeing with you, man.
Yeah.
By the way, I agree with Daniel here.
Yeah.
One of the things he touched on really quickly, I want to touch on this before we move to our next topic. He says, Daniel, no, Browning has a high complete percentage, sling it, period. Just don't go with deep balls and short, sweet. Don't go with deep balls, short and sweet. Zach needs to know that and scheme it up for him. He also says, with the receiver core you have and a guy who can reach a high completion rating, why in the fuck would you rely on the run game? Are you serious, Daniel?
Can I defend you?
Wait, hold on. Let me say one thing and then we'll go. I've got 2 points. We appreciate the conversation. First off, Wes, in the NFL, there's not going to be a game where you can only throw it short and sweet. That's breaking news, right? And you look at what happened last week against the Jaguars. Jake Browning comes in. He wasn't expected to play. And what did he do? He had to force the ball deep. I agree with you. The game plan should not be that. Against Brian Flores, it should not be to throw it deep. But I hate to tell you, there are going to be opportunities when you have T. Higgins, when you have Jamar Chase, that you are going to have to throw it deep. And that's, I'm telling you, right now, we're going to be watching this game, and Jake is going to put a couple balls in harm's way. The only way you can avoid that is if, I agree with you, the screen game, and you run the ball. Because if you're running the ball, you are avoiding the chances that Jake Browning can make a mistake. So that's where, if you run the ball, you can completely throw that out the window because you don't even have to throw it deep. So,
I mean, all I want to say, I mean, what, this is a guy, he didn't make any starts in 2024, did he?
No,
it's his first start since 2023 in a regular season game. We just talked about the mental nightmare that is facing this Minnesota Vikings defense. I mean, the best way to create favorable looks and just keep the defense off balance is by having a reliable running game, being able to pick up 4 or 5 yards a carry, pick up 3rd and shorts, and just convert and keep the offense on schedule. I mean, it's not like throwing a rookie quarterback out there, but I mean, when you're relying on an unexperienced quarterback, especially one that hasn't taken the field in that long, I mean, you have to push all the easy buttons for him. Whether that be through the scheme through the air, or the other most obvious one is being able to rely on the run. I just think it's the easiest button to click if you're a head coach and you're relying on not your franchise quarterback. It's to be able to consistently gain yardage on the ground and threaten defenses that way.
Guys, you guys are being very intricate with this. I'm going to make it very, very simple. And I think you both gave beautiful examples, but while I agree with everything you're saying, Jake Browning's not Joe Burrow. It's just that simple. You're not going to say Jake Browning, even though we have all these receivers, sit back and throw. Because even then, we just were really talking about Joe Burrow, how many hits he takes being in shotgun. We literally talk about how the offensive line is not the best that it could potentially be, especially from the interior standpoint. So why would you put Jake Browning, who's not the quarterback that Joe Burrow is? Joe Burrow has allotted for his ability to, pre-snap, to make changes at the line of scrimmage, the whole 9 yards. He's not that. So therefore, by him not being that, you don't want to put him in compromising situations. Listen, I saw firsthand when the Bengals tried to roll out a Joe Burrow offense for Jake Browning. His first start was in a suite watching that game. Jake Browning got pulverized in that game. He got pulverized. And I'll never forget, because they ran the ball 8 times. They ran the ball 8 times. Remember that? They ran the ball 8 times.
I don't remember us running the ball 8 times.
I'll never forget it. We ran the ball 8 times. And guess what? Time and time again, he was getting hit. He fumbled. He was getting sacked time and time again. You have to show different looks. It's exactly what they started doing. Once Joe Burrow went out. And listen, guys, when we talk about running, it doesn't always have to be line up in I formation, fullback, establish the run. Yeah. It could be many different looks. It could be getting receivers involved on jet sweeps. It could be throwing screens, because the screen is an extension of the run game. There's so much you can do to sort of help marry it all together. But this idea that people have now, and I'm not saying this you, Wes, but this idea of abandon the run game because we're not good at running the ball is just not reasonable. It's not Madden. By the way, I want to shout out people in the chat right now. We've got people tuning in from everywhere, on X, on YouTube, and Twitch. Even though I've reached Unk status, I've adapted. I've adapted, and we are live on Twitch as well. So we've got some fantasy questions. Broly, we're gonna get to your fantasy question here in a second. I know we have another fantasy question down here from from Saying Carlos. Appreciate you too, man. We're gonna get to your guys' fantasy questions. But no, I think Wes commented. He said, "Line is trash. So how can you run anything?" Wes, I'll make you a bet, brother. Wes, comment and let me know if you're a Bengals fan, first and foremost. If I'm wrong about this, I promise you I will buy you tickets to the next Bengals home game. Promise you. I'll make you a bet. I will buy you tickets to the next Bengals home game. I guarantee you the Bengals offensive line looks noticeably improved this week with Jake Browning in there. I guarantee it. I guarantee you they get more production out of the run game. And you got to be crazy to think, I know Chase Brown is no Bijan Robinson, but seeing what Bijan Robinson and the Vikings were able to do to that Minnesota Vikings defense, you've got to be crazy to think that Zach Taylor and Dan Pitcher won't look to replicate that and hand the ball off to Chase Brown several times this game. You got to be crazy to think that they won't at least try and see if they can establish the run game. Well, let me know. Let me know if you want that bet. I'll take you up on it. Anyway, thank you guys again for tuning in. If you guys could do us a huge favor, give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, turn on post notifications so you guys don't miss when we go live or upload content from the TWSN studios. Hey, listen, it's not Fantasy Football Fridays here at TWSN if we don't have Mike O'Hara in the building, and if we don't have the second half of the law firm, Steve Bradshaw and O'Hara live and in action. And, Steve's now on the live. He's got the hair slicked back. All right, Steve, don't stun him too hard, man. Listen, man, it's good to see you. How you doing, brother?
You too. Pretty good. Just took a shower not too long ago, so guess the hair is still wet.
TMI, Steve. Whoa.
Hey,
Whoa.
I just wanted to clarify.
Well, listen, it's Fantasy Football Fridays. I'm going to be sitting back listening. Daniel, the floor is yours.
All right, boys. So let's go about it like this. First off, I want to know, Steve, how's your fantasy football teams doing so far this year? And then we'll get to your guys' starts and sits.
Yeah, my main home league, I'm 1-1 after Justin Fields got a concussion and basically ruined my game for me. Chase Brown didn't do much either last week, so it's all right. But I just made a trade buying low on A.J. Brown, trading away Tyreek Hill and 𝗫𝗎𝗪. So I'm hoping that this Eagles offense throws the ball a little more. I'm trusting the 8 targets he had. I still have high hopes for my team, though.
All right. Love it. How about you, Mike? How's your team doing?
I'm just trying to weather the storm until Rashee Rice gets back. I mean, you're going to give me a layup Rashee Rice in the 5th round. I'm going to take it every single time. I mean, he's just awesome for fantasy football. So we're getting along okay. I don't believe I'm 0-2 in any of my leagues. So just got to float around 500 and then make that late season push and then just see what the playoffs can give me.
Love it. So we'll get to you guys' questions in a second. Make sure you guys drop them down below. But Steve, let's start off with your favorite start of the week.
Yeah, it is officially Bill season. I am so in on him. I was a big fan of him coming out of Arizona. I know he had that whole kind of eligibility issue, and then he played at a few other smaller schools before then. But he was a good prospect. Obviously, killed it during training camp, which people started to realize. And then the hype just took off from there. Obviously, Austin Eckler going down, sucks for him. He was an awesome fantasy player back with the Chargers. But it gives 𝗬𝗓𝗪 so much opportunity. Really, every time he's touched the ball, in his first ever NFL game, I believe he had 14 points. Now he's going up against a pretty good matchup as well, where you have the Raiders. The Commanders are 3.5-point favorites too, with a 44.5 over-under. So I think it's going to be fairly high scoring. The Commanders are going to be in a position to where they're going to be ahead and they can run the ball. And I'm buying into the Bill hype as an RB2 this week.
Love it. All right, going from the Commanders to who you got, Mike, for your first start.
Well, first off, I do have to give Steve his flowers. It was shortly after the NFL draft, and he was telling me about 𝗬𝗓𝗪𝗧, and he's like, "Do you like him?" And I just kind of hand waved him away. I was like, "No, 7th round." Like, no. So I got to give Steve his flowers there. I will say, if you are considering starting him, just keep an eye on the injury report for Jaden Daniels. With 𝗬𝗓𝗪𝗧, you're obviously really leaning just into the offensive environment and the potential for touchdowns. And if Jaden Daniels is out and it's Marcus Mariota, obviously that plummets to a pretty significant degree, and it makes it a bit more of a toss-up. So just keep your eye on that. But one guy I do want to shout out is Chris Olave, and I know Steve likes him as well. He's kind of a fringe starter, but I mean, it's running on 3 years of just like the buy low on Chris Olave kind of thing. Eventually, he will see some fantasy points. It's a tough matchup against the Seahawks. The Seahawks have a really, really good defense with Mike McDonald running the show, but just all of the usage trends point to Chris Olave just being a worthwhile fantasy starter. 27.5% target share so far this season, just really, really strong. Matt Harmon over at Yahoo did a really nice cut up about how Kellen Moore is getting him more involved in the offense, just some more creative and fantasy friendly usage. I mean, last week there was a lot of really strong and designed routes for Chris Olave, and Spencer Rattler just underthrew him on a touchdown. Well, kind of missed behind him. So the potential to generate fantasy points is there. It hasn't translated to any high-end weeks just yet, but I mean, at the end of the day, you're just chasing volume, chasing opportunity, and Chris Olave has proven time and time again that he can earn targets in this offense, and I expect that to continue.
Love it. Love it. He's got a very consistent Chris Olave. So, Steve, give us your second start, and then we'll go to Mike, and then we'll go to some questions.
Yeah, I was actually going to shout out Olave because I have him on my fantasy team as well. And like you said, Mike, he has been getting targets. The Saints offense actually hasn't looked as bad as, we may have thought. So really good call there. I'm going to go with Keenan Allen as a fringe flex. Now, he is not, the most exciting name, but let's not just act like he isn't averaging 18.4 points per game through the first 2 weeks. He had 19.8 in week 1, 17.1 in week 2. And while, yes, that's from 2 touchdowns, the targets are there. He had 10 in week 1, 7 in week 2. And what I really like about this matchup is they're going up against the Denver Broncos. And obviously, 𝗦𝗡𝗢𝗏 is going to be, the number one guy. I think a lot of the tension that 𝗕𝗡𝗏𝗏𝗧𝗏 is going to be giving him is going to open up the game for Keenan Allen to just be that reliable weapon for Justin Herbert, who's also looked amazing. So, again, I think it would be kind of reckless to say like Keenan Allen is your locked-in wide receiver 1 or 2 like he was, back in 2023. I don't think we're all the way back there yet, but if you're in a position like Mike where you have like a Rashee Rice and, waiting in your flex, you're kind of just looking for a guy to plug and play. I think Keenan Allen's a very strong start this week, and overall, just going forward in a good matchup, I really like Keenan Allen.
All right, Mike, who you got?
Yeah, my other start of the week at running back is Jaylen Warren for the Pittsburgh Steelers going up against the New England Patriots. I mean, Caleb Johnson has turned to dust. My sources that are very real told me that Arthur Smith tried to cut him from the sideline last week, but he wasn't allowed. So he's going to remain on the roster, but he could very well be a healthy and active if he's not going to be returning kicks, and they have shown that they have no plans to actually use him in the offense. I mean, it would be a shock, but it wouldn't be the biggest shock. But Jaylen Warren fully taking advantage of Caleb Johnson just not being involved whatsoever. 2/3 of the team's carries last week, a double-digit target share, and he just had an incredible play as a receiver. I mean, Aaron Rodgers hits him on that little ad lib, and he's just bouncing off tacklers, got tackled inside the 5-yard line. And then Aaron Rodgers, after the game, he's like, I saw that play. Maybe we have to get this guy the ball more through the air. So it's just in terms of the usage, it's very, very clear-cut starting fantasy running back usage. And this Patriots defense, I mean, the Raiders and the Dolphins move the ball up and down the field. I know Christian Gonzalez has been banged up. That doesn't have the biggest impact on Jaylen Warren himself. Obviously, it does have an impact on the Steelers offense as a whole, moving the ball up and down the field. But I mean, it's quite clear that Caleb Johnson's in the doghouse. Kenny Gainwell is the epitome of a Jag. So I think it's going to be more and more Jaylen Warren this week. So if you're kind of in a tough spot when it comes to your RB2, I think you can feel pretty comfortable with Jaylen Warren in that spot.
Love it. Love it. So let's get to some of these questions real quick, and then one of you guys is sits of the week. So we had a couple questions from John. He said, would you guys start Deebo Samuel or James Conner at the flex? Steve, we'll go to you real quick.
Yeah, I would start Deebo, and especially because I was literally going to talk about James Conner as a must-sit player this week. He is just James Conner. If you just look at the box score in terms of fantasy points and stats, you might not realize it, but Conner had 30 snaps last week, while Trey Benson had 25. Now, Conner had a lot more carries. Benson only had like 3, I believe. But Benson has already clearly become the receiving guy. So in a PPR league, that's very important. And James Conner, just in general, is the aging running back, the veteran guy, while Trey Benson is their former 3rd-round pick, entering, one of his first years in the NFL, and he's on the uptrend. Deebo Samuel, I'll be honest, I didn't really like him coming into the year, but just from watching the first few games in the production, he has looked good in this offense. I think pairing him with Cliff Kingsbury was, we were kind of like, oh, like whatever. No, it's clearly a good pairing. There's clearly a plan to get him the ball and utilize him. So I really feel good about Deebo going forward as your flex.
All right. P. Kreischer said Trayvon Henderson or Cam Scatterbo this week at the flex or running back 2.
That is an unfortunate situation to be in. Obviously, you were expecting a lot more out of TreVeyon Henderson, but he is much like Caleb Johnson, just hitting the doghouse. I also had him listed as one of my benches for this week, just because he couldn't even crack a 30% snap share last week. Only five, I believe it was five opportunities, 3 carries, 2 targets last week. So it's pretty brutal because coming out of the draft, I know you guys are big NFL draft guys, film guys. It was expected that pass pro was going to be a strength of his game, but now it's getting him taken off the field. With all that being said, though, I do think that he is the play here this week. 𝗕𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗧, I think long term, it's he's going to be a really exciting fantasy asset. He quite clearly is not clearly, but all signs point to him taking over this backfield from Tyrone Tracy. He's really exciting talent as a receiver and just kind of that grinded out physical runner. So I do think he'll hold some value long term, but until we see him kind of fully taking over that backfield, I'll be hesitant, especially in a matchup with the Chiefs this week. We know what their run defense can do with Chris Jones, Steve Spagnuolo. And I just would be betting on TreVeyon Henderson, even though I do think it's going to be another limited workload. Just him being that explosive playmaker, ripping off one big play with 𝗕𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏. You're really just hoping that he can compile some receptions and hopefully fall into the end zone. I think it's going to be really tough sledding for the Giants this week against the Kansas City Chiefs. So I would just take the more high variance option in TreVeyon Henderson and just bank on a big explosive play.
All right. We got some other ones. Landon Van Steen said, should he trade Brian Thomas Jr. and Omarion Hampton for Ted McMillan and Breece Hall?
That is a really tough one. I did see that he also noted that he's 0-2. Yep. So I do think that this could be a worthwhile trade. I think Brian Thomas Jr. is one of the more clear buy lows in fantasy football right now. But at the end of the day, especially I'm assuming that you had been planning to start Omarion Hampton, and you just really need some production out of your running back. You just need to find wins here. I think 𝗪𝗏 is also, it's not a buy low. I think he is also just one of the clearest buys in fantasy football. I think this guy is going to be an alpha wide receiver in the NFL. I think down the stretch this season, and even as soon as next month, this is going to be a double-digit target per game kind of guy. So Breece isn't ideal because we know that the highs and the lows of the Jets offense are just such a wide range of outcomes week to week, but you're going to get solid production. You know that he in himself is just an incredibly talented playmaker. So I don't think I hate to sell Brian Thomas, but given the context of your team and just the fact that I am so incredibly high on 𝗪𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, I think this makes sense.
All right, Steve, I got a question for you. Griffin McQuaid said, Genty, Garrett Wilson, or Chuba? Start 2 of them and sit 1. Who are you sitting?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I think that really depends on if Fields plays or not. And he's not playing this week. I think it's already confirmed. So I would sit Garrett Wilson then. Genty, if you had a healthy Garrett Wilson, I honestly might sit Genty. Chuba is one of the more underrated players in fantasy. He gets consistent volume. He's involved in the pass game. So I really like him, and I would start him over Genty, honestly, going forward until Genty and the Raiders O-line kind of figures it out. But with no Justin Fields, I think you kind of got to sit Garrett Wilson. No one's excited about Tyrod Taylor leading this offense. And Genty is still an elite talent who's going to get a ton of volume. And he was kind of talking about I think I was drafted to get a bit more volume too. So maybe that could even play into him getting some more touches, even more so in week 3.
For sure. And we had one question from James O'Hare. He said, Dak Prescott, do you think that he could be a top 5 fantasy performer as well as Javonte Williams versus the Bears run defense? What's your guys' thoughts on the matchups?
Yeah, you should be playing every piece of this Bears-Cowboys game that you possibly can. Dak Prescott, you love to have a rushing quarterback in there, but if you're relying on one of those TD-dependent quarterbacks, Dak Prescott is definitely one of the premier options this week. This game is going to have the highest total on the slate by far and away. Just 2 atrocious defenses. Sorry, Steve. Going head-to-head this week. And 2 offenses that I think are, we already know what the Cowboys can do. We just saw them hang, 41 points on the Giants in overtime. And I think there's reason to have some hope that the that the Bears have a bounce back opportunity here against a struggling Cowboys defense. And we know what Ben Johnson can do. I mean, Caleb Williams looked really good in the schemed plays, in the planned plays these last couple of weeks. So I just think this is a game environment that you want to be just leaning into heavily.
And Steve, any thoughts on your Bears for this?
Yeah, I think atrocious is a pretty kind word for this defense right now without Jalen Johnson. Yeah, 100%. Like you said nothing wrong about the Bears defense, and honestly, it might have been a little too nice. So going forward, I am highly favoring fantasy offenses going up against the Bears for the foreseeable future.
All right.
Can we get to the questions that were down below?
Yeah, one last question from Landon Van Steen. He said, should he try to trade 𝗦𝗥𝗕𝗦𝗢𝗥 right now while everybody's super high on him?
Steve and I had a bit of a very brief back and forth about this on Twitter. The production that we have been seeing out of 𝗦𝗥𝗕𝗦𝗢𝗥 is obviously unsustainable. I mean, I think he has 3 touchdowns and I believe it's like 8 catches. So it's very, very obviously unsustainable. But I mean, I just think that this guy is a legitimate NFL talent and a legitimate high-end wide receiver. I think that the offense as a whole will continue to improve as they get their pieces along the offensive line back. I know they've taken some brutal hits in the last couple of days in terms of offensive line injuries, but I still think this can be a top 10 offense in the NFL. And 𝗦𝗥𝗕𝗦𝗢𝗥 has very much proven that he belongs. I mean, it all depends on the trade package that you're getting. I mean, like if you can give 𝗦𝗥𝗕𝗦𝗢𝗥 and some ancillary kind of depth piece for someone like 𝗪𝗏 McMillan, who has been producing, but not any like ground-breaking production, I think that you should go and do it. But I have a bunch of 𝗦𝗥𝗕𝗦𝗢𝗥, and I'm holding just because I think he is going to continue to progress as the season moves along. And he has proven very much that he can be a fantasy asset and just a producer at the NFL level.
Steve?
Yeah, I think it's tough because where you drafted him, he's wildly outperformed those expectations. So maybe your league mates might not be willing to pay up because they're kind of just thinking back to the draft and where he's valued then. But I think if you can make a deal like a 𝗦𝗥𝗕𝗦𝗢𝗥 plus a 𝗪𝗏𝗏𝗡 or like a running back too that has some upside and tier up to like a Brian Thomas Jr., Drake London, that's a move that I would be doing. I don't think you sell 𝗦𝗥𝗕𝗦𝗢𝗥 just to sell him, but I think obviously, the touchdowns are going to come down. Like Mike said, it's not sustainable. And there's just a few other minor things. Like Chris Godwin seems to be, coming back faster than expected. 𝗦𝗥𝗕𝗦𝗢𝗥 himself is dealing with a bit of a hip injury, missed 2 straight practices, which, again, I don't think is the end of the world by any means. But when we're splitting hairs, when we're talking about, getting a big blockbuster deal in terms of a Drake London, who's a clear alpha wide receiver 1, extremely talented. Brian Thomas Jr., same deal. Both are borderline low round 1 picks, high second round picks. I think that's a move that I'm willing to make. But like Mike said, depends on the trade package. Don't sell him just to sell him. But if you have someone that's just looking at the box scores like, oh, here's a first-round wide receiver that already went nuts, how could things get, any less productive? Like that's a price that I'm willing to sell at.
So we have some folks from Twitch that are actually sorry, we had a little bit of technical difficulty. We have some folks from Twitch that are asking questions and they're not populating exactly in the stream. So we're going to get some of those too. Appreciate you, Broly. Appreciate you, Saint, as well, for being patient.
So we got a question from Broly was asking about a potential trade. Isaiah Pacheco for Jordan Mason or Isaiah Pacheco for Keenan Allen. What would you guys do?
Well, I think both of those trades are wins. I think that Isaiah Pacheco is going to be a pick that people come to regret over the course of this season. I think that's already proving to be true. And I think in terms of the package, it just all depends on what your team needs. Aaron Jones heading to IR with the hamstring injury. So Jordan Mason over the next 4 weeks is locked in RB2 just based on volume alone. He's proven that he can be an effective, explosive, efficient runner at the NFL level, especially even in week 1 with the Vikings and especially last year with the San Francisco 49ers. So that's just a volume driven play. Running back tends to be a more thin kind of, just the pool of talent is more thin. So I would lean in that direction. It comes down to your team needs, but a month long of like flirting with RB1 kind of level expectations, I think can be very, very valuable for most fantasy teams, especially if you're hurting at running back.
Steve, any thoughts on that one real quick?
Yeah, I'd take both, to be honest, but I'd easily lean Mason as well for all the reasons that Mike said. I think it's wheels up for Jordan Mason. Isaiah Pacheco, there's no real reason to believe why he would bounce back. Unfortunately, it was a great story. He had some good years of production, but it kind of does seem like this is the end of the road. So
Chill on
get
my
out while
Rutgers
you
guy.
can.
Chill on my Rutgers guy.
Hey, I was a big Pacheco fan. I was hoping that he'd have a bounce back, but I mean, unless you want to tell me some glimmer of hope, I just don't see it.
I think it's the Chiefs. I'm just be honest with you. I think it's the Chiefs. I think, yeah, I'll
Yeah,
give it that.
That's fair.
So we had one last question from our guy saying, I believe, potential trade: Drake London for Chase Brown or Kyren Williams. Would you guys entertain that trade? And if so, for who?
I would not entertain either of those trades. Obviously, Chase Brown, it's been rough, tough sledding for him through 2 weeks, and just in terms of his production, there's little reason to believe that the Bengals are going to philosophically shift away from him just absorbing or getting all of the touches.
He's getting offered Drake London.
He's being
so if he
offered
is, then
Drake
yes.
London.
Okay.
I apologize. Yes,
That's
you should absolutely take both of those trades. I don't think it really matters. I would honestly lean Kyren Williams. Giving up Kyren Williams in exchange for Drake London, because like I had just harped on, there's no real signs of Chase Brown kind of losing that stranglehold on the backfield. But last week we saw Kyren Williams losing legitimate snaps to Blake Corum, and then after the game, Sean McVay came out and doubled down and said, "Yes, this is what I want the backfield to look like." And believe me, he has said this before, and he has gone out and done the exact opposite. But I think that there is reason to have hesitancy about Kyren Williams' workload and role. Meanwhile, I have none of that with Chase Brown, and I think Kyren Williams is. I've made my stance pretty clear on this show about Kyren Williams. I don't think he is talented as a rusher. I understand he brings a well-rounded skill set and helps this Los Angeles Rams offense, but when it comes to producing for fantasy, it's all volume for him. And if that is in question, that is a serious issue for you as a Kyren Williams manager. So I would take that trade in the heartbeat.
Steve, any thoughts on this?
Yeah, Kyren, it's easily Drake London for me. I would take that deal and run. Chase Brown, I'd still like London more. I think if there's, really an argument to be made to an extreme, like you're extremely loaded at wide receiver, you're so thin at running back, it's hard to get deals done elsewise. I don't think that would be a bad trade necessarily in just keeping Brown, but it seems like if you're, in a position to be able to get London in your starting lineup as a necessity, I would definitely take him there.
Before we let you get out of here, Steve, I actually have something I want to bring up to you and Mike really quickly. I am no fantasy guy. You guys know that already. But I have noticed an emergence coming right before our very own eyes, and I know the fantasy community was really high on this guy when he got drafted, and they were high on him probably into year two, but I think these last few years people have kind of grown sour on him, but I've seen him emerging in the Falcons offense, and I want to get you guys' opinion on him. Kyle Pitts, I don't know if y'all been paying attention too much, but outside of Bijan Robinson, he seems to be Michael Penix Jr.'s favorite target, even over Drake London. I want to get you guys' opinion on that.
Yeah, I think he is very much a viable fantasy asset, because outside of roughly five tight ends, it's an absolute wasteland out there. And last week was pretty interesting because in 2024, Zach Robinson's first year taking over this offense and the offensive play calling, we saw this team basically exclusively use 3 wide receiver sets, and Kyle Pitts' struggles as a blocker kept him off the field oftentimes in favor of their blocking tight end Charlie Warner. This year they've moved, and they've not only they've been running 2 tight end sets, they've also just taken Ray McLeod off the field at times. And those are obviously correlated there. So Kyle Pitts, and just in terms of his opportunity to earn targets, just by simply being on the field, that was a huge problem last year. And that is lessening to a degree this year. So I think that that's obviously very encouraging. And then, like you said, yes, he does look good. So I think he's a very viable fantasy option. Just because, like I said, they're just, it's a group of 5, and then it's just a cluster of like 10 to 12. And I think he very much falls in that cluster. I think that he's a priority over other options, just because I think it's understandable to be excited about Michael Penix and this Atlanta offense just potentially being a high-scoring unit. I know it wasn't the prettiest against the Vikings, but like we've talked about at length on this show, it's not always going to be pretty against the Minnesota Vikings. So, yeah, I think he should definitely be rostered in 12-team leagues. And depending on where your situation is, if you have one of those top 5 guys, he shouldn't be on your roster. Use them as a trade piece. But for the most part, yeah, he is a week-to-week starter until proven otherwise.
Steve?
Yep.
Yeah, so I think is he a viable option? Sure. Is the Kyle Pitts breakout finally here, like tight end 1 number season? No, I think let's pump the brakes there. As someone that was a Kyle Pitts fan coming out of college and was burned by him in fantasy football badly, it's a sore subject. And I think Pitts is a fine player, but also an underrated part of kind of this conversation is Darnell Mooney hasn't been playing. And I think Mooney is one of the more underrated wide receiver 2s in the NFL. So I'm expecting, those targets to kind of drop a good amount once Mooney gets back, because, yeah, it's great he's getting on the field, like you said, you mentioned, Mike, in those tight end sets. I think Mooney is just a really underrated player who's going to take away targets from Pitts, who had 8 in week 1, 5 in week 2. I think, again, he's going to be a fine back-end tight end 1 simply because of how bad the tight end position is. But, if we're talking about Kyle Pitts breakout, top 3 tight end this year, I think let's pump the brakes over there.
Listen, all I'm going to say is Michael Penix has lived up to everything he said he was going to do. He said this year he was going to remind people about how good Kyle Pitts actually was. He was going to get Kyle Pitts involved in the offense. I disagree with you, Steve. I think that Kyle Pitts is going to have a bounce back year this year, and I think Kyle Pitts is going to be heavily involved in this Falcons research. Honestly, he needs it. He needs it, right? Because if it's not this year, it's never going to happen. They're probably going to
contract year.
It's contract year. So, guys always tend to perform better in their contract year. But I watched that game and I saw Michael Penix Jr. just looking for Kyle Pitts over and over again. He probably would have he probably targeted him. I don't know what the official number was, but from me watching, I think he ended up with 5 catches, but he targeted him about 8 times. And a couple of them were holds. A couple of them were missed throws. He seems to be emerging. Remember, for week 1, he had 7 catches. Albeit, I think they went to overtime, but he still had 7 catches week 1. So he finally seems like he has a quarterback that's willing to live and die on the Kyle Pitts, hill, if you will. So we'll see what happens. I don't know. We'll see what happens though, Steve. Steve, as always, wishing your Chicago Bears the absolute best this upcoming week, man. A couple weeks, you guys take on my Cincinnati Bengals, so we'll see what happens there. Listen, man, we want to thank you guys. We want to thank you so much, man, for obviously popping in. We'll see you next Friday, brother, but I'll be texting you obviously through the weekend.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me.
Of course, as always. That was Steve Bradshaw, one half of Bradshaw and O'Hara firm. Now it's my favorite part of the show. We give it betting advice. We give betting advice, right? We obviously have a Patreon. If you guys have not had a chance to subscribe to that just yet, QR code is up top. Also, the link is in the description. We've been on absolute fire. Let me tell you something that happened last night. So I didn't have a strong conviction one way or the other, but I did give out a free play on yesterday's show. I said, listen, guys, there's one play that I really, really love is Dalton Kincaid to score a touchdown. Daniel could tell you I came in to the house from dinner and I hadn't even put the play in just yet. I literally was like, should I bet this? I think that's where I'm leaning. I really believe Dalton Kincaid is going to get this. I sit down, I place the bet, boom, hits. As soon as I sit down, literally, probably I wasn't sitting down for 3 minutes, hits, cash on a 10 grand bet. This stuff. So when I call myself the tight end whisperer, I need you guys to believe me. Before we get to NFL action, Merce, I have a question for you. And I really want your opinion. I was looking at some of the, obviously, college football. There isn't a lot of plays that I literally love for college football this week because my team doesn't play this week. Ohio State doesn't play this week. But, Marissa, a play that I saw that I thought was very, very tempting, and I want your opinion on this. The 2-1 Purdue Boilermakers taking on the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Notre Dame is 0-2? 2. But help me understand why Notre Dame is minus 4,000. That is the money line. Notre Dame is minus 4,000. I get that they're home. Unless I'm reading this wrong, y'all guys can fact check me. But when I look at FanDuel right now, the money line is minus 4,000 Notre Dame. Help me understand where I'm going wrong there, because for me, I feel like that's chalk that I'm willing to sprinkle on. I think that there's no way that I'm passing up on that. What are you guys' thoughts?
Yeah, I think that this is for me.
Minus 4,000.
It's a clear bounce back spot for Notre Dame.
Sure,
but like.
But it's plus
25
and a half.
So it depends on how you're gonna play it. Like if you feel that confident, for me, I always like sprinkling on the big odds. Like, I mean,
because what
it's
happens if
college
Purdue
football.
starts fast?
I agree.
Hear me out. I have a weird betting process, right? If Purdue starts fast, they look good. Let's say they score 10 points unanswered, 13 points, 14 points unanswered, even 21 unanswered. There's still likely Notre Dame is to come back, right? But you probably could cash out at a pretty good penny. I'm just being honest here.
Mm-hmm.
You got to look how to play this thing.
Mm-hmm.
If I throw $100 on a plus 1,400 Purdue to win this game, they go up by 10. They start fast because Notre Dame has been losing and they're not the most confident team right now. You cash out at halftime, they're up, or you cash out once they go up by 2 scores, you profit.
Yeah.
Help me out. Am I wrong? Am I thinking about this wrong?
No,
I don't think Notre Dame has shown anything to be a plus 20, should be 25 and a half favorites. I don't think that they've shown that.
No. And that's where like it's all about value, and plus 1,400 it's something, especially in college football. I would never be against that, especially if for a team like Purdue, they've looked good. And who's their quarterback? They've got a good quarterback there. I was talking to somebody about him, and I like it. I like it. Plus 1,400, it never hurts to sprinkle on something like that. Not at all. Well, can I say one thing about college football real quick?
Yeah.
I don't understand this. And what I don't understand, and we wrote a piece about this on TWSN on the website, Michigan versus Nebraska, Malik, it is even odds. Michigan is ranked. They are 1-point favorites. Let me just say this. I put in a $10 bet, and right now, Dylan Raiola to win the Heisman Trophy is plus 5,500. 5,500. So he is the number 18th ranked guy, and people are saying, oh, he is not a candidate. What the hell are you talking about? He doesn't deserve this. If you are looking at the odds, if they beat a ranked Michigan team, I can guarantee you guys right now, if they win this game, his odds are going to shoot to top 5 or top 10. And for me, I look at that and I think that's value. And like I said, I liked it before. I thought Michigan was going to be crazy favorites. They are 1-point favorites in this game. I'm buying into Matt Rule. I'm buying into Dylan Raiola. I think he's got the case to win Heisman. And like I said, you just talked about odds. You're getting me plus 5,500. And I guarantee if they win this game, that is going to shoot to a plus 1,000. And you can literally cash out after that. But I think he's got a very good chance, specifically as nobody's really broken out this year. Nobody is the
Dylan Raiola looks damn good.
He looks good.
I hate how he's like a Pat Mahomes wannabe. He has no identity of himself, but he is working for him. So keep it up. You want to cut your hair just like he did? Like, sure, do all that stuff.
My only concern is Mahomes never won the Heisman. So is he capable of doing that?
I mean, he's the one guy that looks like he's standing out. Maybe you got a good point right now. But I'll tell you right now, Dylan Raiola and the Nebraska, if Nebraska can go on and beat Michigan, they will put people on notice.
Sure, for sure.
People, and let's not act like it's something that's out of the realm of possibility. It could 100% happen.
$18 million man.
Yeah. I don't know. We didn't see the chance to talk about it. I didn't love what I saw out of Bryce Underwood, man. His leadership qualities on the sideline, yelling at people as a freshman, true freshman. I don't know. Just a lot of thoughts. But something that came on my desk just now about Purdue. Purdue's offense ranks 40th nationally in success rate, right? And it's top 10 in yards per drive. 10th to be exact. While Notre Dame's defense has struggled, they rank outside the top 100 in efficiency. That's all the reason for me to sprinkle a little bit on the Purdue Boilermakers. So I am sprinkling a little bit of money on the Purdue Boilermakers. We'll come back on the show Monday, and we'll see if Malik is going to be happy Malik or if Malik is going to be nonchalant Malik. We'll see. I just feel like that's a play that I feel like I got to throw out there because while we're sifting through everything, we're like, okay, where can we find our spots to potentially hit something? I feel like putting a little money on Purdue ain't a bad thing. What is Dylan Raiola's touchdown prop at against Michigan? Is that 1.5 again?
If I had to guess, it's 1.5. But
right. Well, let's get that. Let's get that. While we're doing that, I want to get to some of these NFL plays. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So I certainly got some plays that I like But I'm gonna let Daniel start this one off because I've been kind of talking for a bit.
No, you're good. So one of the games I'm circling, and this is just a lean currently, but I'm looking at the Seahawks and Saints game, and I think there's a lot of opportunity here. And I'm going to take this one of two ways. First off, I'm a believer in the Seahawks. I think the Seahawks are one of the most underrated teams in the NFL. I think they have one of the best defenses in the NFL. The issue is their injury report. Devon Witherspoon, Reek Woolen. They've got an offensive lineman. Zach Charbonnet is going to be out. They've got a lot of guys on injury report. I'm looking at the Saints, Malik. I think plus 310 is very, very, very good odds. And listen, I think the Saints are one of the worst teams in the NFL. But I have seen the Seattle Seahawks. They have played 2 very close games. And I think that there is an opportunity. This Saints defense, Cam Jordan looks good. I think the Saints can keep this very close. I think 7.5 is my play for sure, because I think this is a 1-score game, but I would not be shocked at all if the Saints come out and shock the world and beat the Seattle Seahawks. Plus 310, I really like that. Okay. A couple others I really like. I mean, just looking at the matchups, we talked about the Dallas Cowboys and the Chicago Bears. This is a minefield for, absolute props. And I'm looking at this 2 ways. First off, CeeDee Lamb has not scored a touchdown this year, and you're going up against a Chicago Bears defense who I believe just lost Jalen Johnson for the year. CeeDee Lamb is a target monster. He is a target hog. And I think I look at him, I'm willing to take him for sure 100 plus yards, but I'm willing to even go up and sprinkle 125 at plus 450. I think him to score a touchdown minus 110 is one of the surest bets of the week. And I would even be able to go up and sprinkle him to get 2 touchdowns. But for me, his over receiving yards, 82.5. I am taking that every single time against the Chicago Bears.
Can we do a little bouncing off one another real quick on a couple of things? I don't want people to get stale of me talking too much, and I got a tendency to go off a
No, you're good.
And Mike, feel free to jump in at any point in time. Is there a play that you like?
I've got a few.
Okay, talk to us.
I've got a few locked in already.
Okay.
I'll just rattle off 2 real quick.
Talk to us.
I gave this play last week, and I'm going right back to the well.
Okay.
Earlier, a couple days ago, I locked in Tyler Warren over 43.5 receiving yards. That line has already flown up. He is proven to be an integral part of this offense for the Indianapolis Colts. I mean, I think it was that guy, Coach Dan Casey on Twitter, who posted him running a route, lined up as a fullback, just leaking through the line and getting downfield. Like, they are designing plays for this guy, getting this guy open, and he has proven that he can be highly productive after the catch and just a reliable weapon in this offense. I believe he's cleared 70 receiving yards in both of his 2 games, but as long as they're hanging that number out there, floating around 40, I'm going to continue to hammer it. They've already shown that they were not too thrilled with the number they put out. I believe it's sitting around 49.5 on most books now, but I locked in at 43.5. The other one, kind of going along the same path that you did, Daniel, and I talked about it earlier, is I took George Pickens' longest reception over 22.5 yards this week against the Chicago Bears. Last week and throughout his career, he's shown an ability to win downfield, especially last week against the Giants. A lot of those got wiped, 2 plays, I believe, wiped out by DPI. But he also showed some real yak ability last week. And once again, dating back to last season, he's shown that he has that in his bag. And I talked about it. I just really think that this is going to be just a really offensive-friendly game environment. I believe Dak Prescott last week cleared 50 dropbacks with ease. I think the Chicago Bears could realistically keep pace with the Cowboys and just turn this into a real track meet, which bodes well for George Pickens and the other offensive pieces here.
Awesome. Okay, so I'm going to fire off a couple really quickly. Going to go to the Bengals versus Vikings game. Listen, the tight ends have been I mean, it's been abysmal, the lack of usage of the tight ends for the Vikings. TJ Hawkinson has been look like he's probably lost a step, but he hasn't. But that all changes because now he has a veteran quarterback in there who loves targeting his tight ends. Carson Wentz is the quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings this week. The Bengals have an issue covering tight ends. I say it week in and week out. I like TJ Hawkinson to have over 3.5 receptions this week, but I'm going to shock you guys a little bit. I love the Bengals tight ends. And I'm not just saying that as the tight end whisperer. I'm not just saying that because I interviewed Noah Fan. I'm not just saying that because I love Mike Gesicki. I'm saying that because Mike Gesicki didn't have a target when Joe Burrow was in the game. Okay? He finished the game with 3 catches, right? After not being targeted at all, right? When Burrow was in there. Mike Gesicki hasn't, I think couple in the Browns game. I think he had one catch going into that Vikings game. The third quarter hits, the Bengals started targeting him. He gets 3 catches out of the back. Noah Fant gets involved right off the bat. I don't remember how many catches did Noah Fant finish with last week. Was it 3 or 2?
Let me check.
Anyway, their props are, while you're checking that, Noah Fant is sitting at 2.5 receptions, Daniel. And Mike Gesicki is sitting at 2.5 receptions.
Get 3.
Both of those plays, Noah Fant had 3, right? And Mike Gesicki had 3 as well, I believe. But both of those plays, both of those props are sitting at 2.5, and it's at plus money. Chase Brown is also at 2.5. No, did he have? Was it 3? So they both had 3. They both had 3 catches after Jake Browning basically played a half and a half in I would say 2 minutes or whatever it was in a football game, and he got those guys involved right away. One thing I realized looking at Jake Browning, he loves his tight ends. He loves going to the tight end position. And I'm not just making this up, guys. This is actual facts to back it up. Hear me out. I went back and I looked at the last time, Jake Browning started for the Bengals. Who were the most targeted positions? One thing is for sure that has rang true for me. He force feeds Ja'Marr Chase, but he really force feeds his tight ends. We're talking about Tanner Hudson, right? Can we all agree Noah Fant is better than Tanner Hudson and Mike Gesicki is better than
I hope
Tanner
no
Hudson?
one's disagreeing.
Okay. Well, Tanner Hudson, in his first 3 games with him, he had 4 receptions. One of the games, Sample had 3. Drew Sample had 3, who's much more like an H-back, right? He favors the tight end position at such an alarming rate. The running back position is also a position that eat. When Mixon was in, he had 6 receptions in one game. Hear me out, though, on something, guys. Some of the plays I just gave you were the last time, Jake Browning took on the Minnesota Vikings. That's what he's done. T. Higgins wound up having 2 touchdowns in that game, actually. So I definitely think T. Higgins is definitely going to be a red zone target for him in this game. But I really, really like the tight end spot, man. Daniel's going to have to talk me off of a cliff here for that. But I really think that you start to see the screen. People might say, Malik, why are you going to Chase Brown to get receptions? Well, it's because I look at how they utilize Chase Brown and how they utilize tight end position. Expect more screens, which means the screens are not going to always just be exclusively to the running back. It's also going to be to the tight end position. I think those guys are going to be heavily, heavily involved. And the value that you can get on those guys being the most targeted or, kind of eating, even if you bet these guys have 5 receptions, it's ridiculous. I think that's going to be such an easy target for Jake Browning. So I'm sorry I'm staying on that so long, but it's something I feel very, very strongly about. I think those guys do well. If you're betting on T. Higgins to have a touchdown at any point in time in this game, it's at plus 230. Okay. That's the play I'm willing to take, especially with the Minnesota Vikings cornerbacks, right? That's a play that I'm taking. I don't think that there is. I think if you think this Bengals team is going to get in the red zone at some point, I expect T. Higgins to be a target. Something weirdly enough, Jake Browning doesn't really target Ja'Marr Chase a lot in the red zone. It's kind of strange.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that he's definitely going to definitely eat on. I like Puka Nacua to score a touchdown too.
I love Puka.
I think Puka Nacua scores a touchdown. I think Puka Nacua scores a touchdown against the Philadelphia Eagles. I don't like the Philadelphia Eagles corners. And I think he's going to get an opportunity. That's sitting at plus money as well.
I like his receptions. Puka, I mean, not to steal your thunder here, but
keep going.
His last 2 games against Eagles, he had, I believe, in the playoffs, it was 6 receptions, but he had 14 targets, 90 yards. And then they played him early in the season. He had 11 receptions. Puka is going to be in the offensive player of the year conversation. That
sounds like a crazy name that you're just giving.
Puka Nacua?
Pookie.
But that sounds
Pookie Nacua.
Pookie Nacua. I'm all in on him, man. And I like Devontae Adams. I think he looked very, very good last week. But Puka he's the guy. 6.5 receptions, far too low. We're gonna be talking about him next week of having 10 receptions and like 140, I think.
Okay. I also like Dak Prescott over 1.5 passing touchdowns.
Oh yeah.
Play I like. Sure. I'm giving out a lot right now. But my upset of the week, guys. Upset of the week. I can't come away from this right now. I'm leaning the Giants to beat the Chiefs.
Wow.
I'm leaning Giants money line. Talking about prime time in New York. Brian Daboll needs to win this game.
Needs it.
He needs it. The eyes of the world are going to be on this game. I feel like he finds a way to win that. I really do. I like what I saw from them, and I think the Chiefs are spiraling on offense right now. I think they are spiraling on offense. I don't think anybody right now is stepping up to save them. And I think right now they need somebody to step up. They need somebody to step up. Oh, by the way, the number on that for the tight end spot, because I talked about this. Tanner Hudson, last time the Bengals played the Minnesota Vikings and Jake Browning was the starter against Brian Flores' defense, he had 5 receptions, 49 yards. Tanner Hudson had 5 receptions, 49 yards. So if you're a believer in me and you are part of the tight end whisperer group, I hope that you guys would trust me. Mike Gesicki, Noah Fant, big days against the Minnesota Vikings on Sunday.
I love it.
Anything else you want to add?
I mean, there's a lot I can add. A couple things I will say. If I'm looking at some of these other props I really like, just some touchdown scores. I like Travis Kelce on primetime, plus 120. He scored a touchdown in the first game. He had the red zone opportunity, obviously dropped the pass. That's as safe of an opportunity.
Especially if Taylor's there, right?
Yeah, I feel she's got to be there, right? New York, primetime. I feel like that's as safe of an opportunity as you're going to get. They're going to get in the red zone. They always scheme things up for him. And then I got 2 more. One, 𝗏𝗏𝗡𝗏 to score a touchdown. We talked about this, but I am all in on 𝗏𝗏𝗡𝗏 plus 190 going up against the Falcons. I don't think he's playing. Yeah, I think he's out. So AJ Terrell is out. The fact that McMillan had 10 targets, 9 targets, he is one of their only options that they've got. This dude is the option. Well, you got Hunter Renfrow.
Sure. Whatever you got to tell yourself.
𝗏𝗏𝗡𝗏 is that guy, and I think plus 190 is very, very good odds for him. And the last thing, I'm gonna take a little sprinkle on this, but I think Jonathan Taylor has a monster game against the Tennessee Titans. His line's at 90.5. He
always does well.
He had 200 in their last matchup. Yeah, he had 160 last week. I think him to get plus 150 or 150 yards is plus 600, 680. So I think Jonathan Taylor, if we're talking about him getting 150 rushing yards, I think that's a no-brainer. It's like, hey, Jonathan Taylor had another 150 yards against a terrible Titans defense. I absolutely love that at plus 680 for Jonathan Taylor.
I will co-sign that bet. I have already taken his over myself.
There you go.
Beautiful. Listen, I wasn't able to find the Falcons props just yet, but I'm definitely hammering Bijan Robinson's receptions and Kyle Pitts because I love what I'm seeing. And it seems like Vegas hasn't caught on just yet. They're still keeping Kyle Pitts at like 2.5 receptions. 3.5.
Props are up.
FanDuel, they were? Okay, they were not up a second ago. But what is Kyle Pitts' receptions at? Just
3.5.
3.5? I'm taking
Bijan is 3.5 as well.
Yeah, I'm taking those two. I'm taking both of those. Both of those hit with ease. Anyway, listen. That is all the time that we got. We want to thank you guys so much for tuning in to another episode of the Sit Down Morning Show with Malik Wright, presented by the Right Way Sports Network. I'm your host, Malik Wright. Again, appreciate you guys for making us a part of your everyday morning routine. Remember, the Sit Down Morning Show is live Monday, Thursday, and Friday at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time. We do Bengals post-game shows or directly after the game. And State of the Jungle is live every single Wednesday at 7 p.m. where we discuss all things Cincinnati Bengals. Listen, we hope that you guys enjoy your week of college football, week 3 of NFL. We'll be back here live in studio Monday, 10:30 to discuss all the results of this weekend's action. Remember, there's only one way you should be waking up, talking sports, enjoying the conversation, and that is the right way. We'll see everybody.
This is 𝗕𝗏𝗟𝗏𝗧. You ain't heard about us yet, well, you better